Alright, so, hello everybody. Welcome to the More Knowledge Show. Today is Monday, September 2nd, 2019. Today is a Labor Day, so that's the reason why I'm able to record on a Monday. Usually I record on a Sunday, but because it's a Labor Day, I can record on a Monday, which is pretty good. But also, the stock market is closed today, so we can't talk about the stock market or what's going on with that. And to be honest, I actually forgot what happened in the stock market last week, and it's kind of pointless to even go back and see what happened in the stock market last week, because the stock market right now is, in fact, really, it's never. It will. Right now, the stock market doesn't really have it won't really tell you much of anything. It just kind of shows that people are very they're quick to react to things, and it's going to change, and it's going to change depending on what the headline is, and the headlines are constantly changing. That's pretty much everything you need to know about the current state of the stock market. So if you want to invest in the stock market, I would still say over the long term, you're gonna win. I mean, I don't like assuming like the Soviet Union does not come back, and we live in and our entire world becomes one big communist world. The stock market will probably still exist 100 years from now, and the value of the stock market will probably be a lot higher than it is right now. But if you're trying to trade for the near term because you think that you know what's going to happen in like the next couple weeks, or if you know what's going to happen tomorrow or in a month, then you're not going to win, because the stock market is completely determined by headlines that is impossible for you to predict. Is not really determined by any sort of fundamentals currently. Because if it was determined by fundamentals, like the outlook for the future, things will not look very good. Honestly, right now I would say our financial markets are pretty much determined by two things: Donald Trump's his Twitter account, and CNBC, the financial news media. Those two things pretty much control the stock market, and that's not really what you would want if you want to have a healthy financial market. If you want healthy financial markets, but that's currently the situation. We're not really in a bull market or a bear market. We're kind of just in this period where people are just trading on depending on headlines, and there's no point in trying to overanalyze it. It is the way it is. But I think over the next 5 years, we'll enter into a sustained, like, downward trending market. I think we'll have a sustained period where the market is depressed, and it's going to last for quite a long time, and it's going to be a result from all of these other problems that are going on in our world. But the first thing I want to talk about is, I think there's this way of thinking about the economy where it's like, if people are warning the economy's in a recession, but the economy's not in a recession, that means it will never go into a recession. Like, a recession is completely out of the picture. So you hear people constantly say, you hear some people will say they're not so good signs in the economy, but then other people will say, well, if you look at certain parts of the economy, they're still growing. If you look at the consumer, if you look at employment, it still looks very strong. It does not look like a recession. And you're right, that's because we're not in a recession. But no one is saying that we are. There are some people who say we are in a recession, but I think that it's pretty hard to make that argument. But majority of people are not saying that we're in a recession. They're saying that we are heading in that direction. But a lot of people don't want to acknowledge that. All they want to do is just point to the fact that we're not in a recession, and we haven't been in a recession, so why would we be in a recession? But if you just think of it like that, then we would never ever go into a recession, because you could just say, well, in the past few years we weren't in a recession, and we're not in a recession right now. Like, you could say that in the year 2007, before we had that crisis, there are plenty of people who were saying that. Plenty of people were saying, well, I mean, the economy still looks strong. It's been a long time since we've been in a recession, so why would we just enter one? And we did enter one, and it was very bad. And then, the economy was saved, at least supposedly. But what's important is, what are the forward-looking signs telling us? Not what how retail sales were like in the past month. What are the signs telling us for the outlook heading into the future? That's kind of what's important. And on that measure, there's quite a compelling argument to argue for a recession. So for one thing, the earnings growth in December, they're projected to be around 7.6%. Now earnings growth are expected to be around 2%. That's a pretty big drop. All right, you have a drop that big of about, like a 5% drop in expectations for earnings for companies for this year. That's pretty significant. All right. Also, many different Goldman Sachs and Citigroup, they're already cutting their projections for earnings for this year and 2020. So it's not like they're saying it's just a little slowdown. It's going to get a lot better in 2020. It's projected to get continuously worse for companies' earnings. And it's not just people like Citigroup saying this. There are companies themselves who are telling us that the trade war is having a pretty significant impact on their economy, and they're directly contradicting what is being told to us by these talking heads who are trying to tell you that it's impossible for things to get very much worse. Also, the shipment index, which is very important. A lot of people kind of overlook this index, but I mean, when you have a growing economy, people are shipping more things because people are, there's more activity, and more activity leads to growth, and more activity also leads to more shipping, because that's what happens in an economy that's active and it's growing and people are constantly doing things. But shipment index, it fell around 6% in July, it fell around 5% in June, and it fell 6% in May. So for the past 3 months, it's been dropping significantly. All right, and I think it's kind of hard to ignore that, and it's also kind of hard to ignore that the United States manufacturing index, it contracted in August for the first time in 10 years. So our manufacturing is at its worst in 10 years. That's also pretty hard to ignore. I mean, you can't say things are not getting worse when it is at its worst in like 10 years. And it's not just manufacturing, it's also services. Some people try to say, well, manufacturing is just a small part of the economy. But what I would say is the same slowdown that's causing a slowdown in manufacturing is also capable of causing a slowdown in every other portion of the economy. It's not just going to be in one area. The economy is connected. All right, so if people start doing bad at manufacturing, people start losing their jobs in manufacturing, then you're going to have more unemployed people. Then those unemployed people aren't going to spend as much. It's a cycle. You hear this a lot. This is not anything groundbreaking, but people forget about it. People forget about the simplest things that can lead to something like a recession. Also, another thing that's very also another big thing in the second quarter, private investment, it dropped 5.5%. So companies investing is dropping, and if their investment's dropping, then what does that mean? Well, that obviously means that the outlook for the economy is a lot worse. Because if the outlook is strong, you wouldn't see that big of a drop in investing. Also, besides that, that's just the fundamental indicators. If you look at some other indicators, you look at the yield curve inversion. Some people saying it's not the same as the past, because a yield curve inversion has always signaled a recession. Some people are saying now it's different. I mean, I don't know. Something I hear people saying is the reason for the yield curve inversion is because of the slowdown in other parts of the world. But first, I would say a slowdown in other parts of the world will also mean a slowdown in America, because it's not just the economy within one country is connected. The economy around the entire globe, all the economies are connected. So yeah, I would say America's economy is slowing right along with everyone else. We may be not slowing as fast as they are, but we are slowing with them. So yeah, like, we're all in the same boat. We're not like on a separate island from everyone else. It may appear like that, because that's how they try to portray America, but that's not true. All right, our other countries are seeing slowdowns in the same areas that our country's also seeing slowdowns. We're not that special. All right. So yeah, the yield curve inversion is a sign of weakness, and people see something like the yield curve inversion as a sign of recession, and they start preparing for a recession. And in the process of preparing for a recession, you see companies, they're going to invest less, they're going to hire less, they may even start firing people. People are going to spend less, and then that is going to exacerbate the problems and really turn things into a recession. And yeah, a yield curve inversion does not necessarily mean that you're going to immediately go into a recession. It may take a long time, but how can you just ignore that? Like, if someone tells you that in a year your economy is about to be terrible and no one's gonna have a job, but you're just gonna say, oh well, we still have 12 months where things are gonna be decent. Like, let's say we go into like a 5-year crisis. I would say a 5-year crisis is a lot greater than 1 year of slowing down into that crisis. It's not much to celebrate, is what I'm trying to say. People are celebrating the fact that our economy appears to be that much better, but we're heading in that same direction. We're not that much different. And if you just focus on the parts that are keeping our economy out of recession and using that as an argument for why we will never go into recession, that's ignoring the fact that things do change. And it's not like certain countries are always in a recession and certain countries are never in a recession. That's not the case. And it's obvious that, people forget history. People forget the things that happened in the past. Even if they only happened like 10 years ago. People just forget it. It's not a good human trait, but it's reality. But hopefully, if you're watching this episode, you're not like those people. And that's kind of the goal of the More Knowledge Association. We're trying to move past that and hopefully have a more educated society. But besides the usual talks of recession, because we do talk a little bit too much about recessions, there are, I think everything is kind of centered around the economy. I think every civilization is centered around an economy. The reason why many cities are built right beside water is for economic reasons. That's the reasons why many cities exist. That's the reason why people cooperate, people organize. Otherwise, people would just kill each other. And because the economy kind of keeps the civilization together, if the economy breaks apart, well, then everything else will break apart. So that's kind of why I spend a lot of time talking about recessions. because it is very significant. You know, if our economic system was to just collapse and our currency completely lost its value, I mean, there would be chaos completely. Everything would be chaotic. And so when you look at these other issues, like the issues in Hong Kong, or the stuff involving Brexit, or pretty much any major war where tons of people have died, you can all tie it back to the economy. So that's why, my show, we talk a lot about the economy. We talk a lot about, a recession and all of these things, because you can't just overlook it. You can't just overlook it and talk about all these other things without realizing what is the core of these things. What is causing all of these other problems. But another thing that may be, I guess, separate from the economy is the environment, the climate, all the stuff, the earth. Right now, you have a hurricane somewhere on the east coast of the United States. It's Monday, so I haven't been keeping up today, but you have a hurricane that's already caused a lot of damage it's caused a lot of damage somewhere. It could potentially cause a lot more damage. And you also have these in the Amazon, you have the entire forest about to burn down. Well, I'm not too sure what's going on right now, but the main point is, you have all these things, and it's pretty good evidence that there are more natural disasters. Natural disasters are getting worse. They're getting more frequent, and it's going to continue to grow like that. So they're going to continue to get worse. They're going to continue to be more frequent, and that means the costs are going to continue to go up. And what this is going to kind of force our world into is kind of a war against the environment. So this is going to force us to completely change how we do everything within the span of a few years to pretty much save our planet. And at this point, it's too late for those small changes. You can't just, we're going to slowly cut back on this, because it's already happening. We are already seeing the results of these problems. We are already seeing the natural disasters taking place as a result of these problems, and they're projected to continue to get worse. So we can't just sit here and say we're still gonna operate as normal. We're just gonna pass a few more regulations, or we're just gonna spend a little bit more money. It's pretty much time to go to war, is what I'm saying. But the point of me saying that is, in the process of trying to save the environment, we're going to have to sacrifice the economy. Meaning, everyone's standard of living is going to have to go down. People are going to have to work harder. Certain areas that the government spend money is going to have to be cut. The economy is going to take a hit. Taxes are probably going to have to go up. All of these things that are bad for the economy are going to have to happen, and we're going to have to sacrifice the economy to fight this environmental battle. And the reason why I'm saying that is because I hear some people say there are two sides to this. Some people are saying we should not even fight this battle because you'll be sacrificing the economy, and people don't want that. Kind of like when there's a war, an actual war, like a World War II. Everything that the government has to come in and basically take the economy and shift it all towards fighting that war. If you were around during World War II, everyone's lives were not better off, but it may be actually a lot worse in our situation than it was in World War II. But it's a similar idea. When you go to war, the economy has to take a hit because you have a crisis that you have to solve, and because of that, other areas are going to have to be sacrificed. But you have some people saying that it's not a big issue. We should not sacrifice our economy in order to fight this battle. But I mean, at this point, you can't acknowledge as it's an issue. You're clearly brainwashed. All right, like you're clearly because it's not a conspiracy theory anymore. You're seeing actual results from the effects of the climate. You're seeing actual things that are happening, and when it gets to that point, conspiracy theories are great. Look, I love conspiracy theories, but once it's proven wrong and you continue to try to push the conspiracy theory, it shows that that's not good. That's not good, because then you hurt the conspiracy theory community. You make us less believable. You make us seem more like trolls than actual people who are trying to question our world, which is what we are really trying to do with conspiracy theories. Because if you continue to try to push it when there's already significant evidence, you are further discrediting yourself. You're not helping yourself, and you're not helping your cause. So it'll be in your best interest to stop pushing that. Stop pushing the idea that our climate and our environment and all of these things are completely fine. There's going to have to be a war. There's going to have to be a war, and it's going to come at the expense of the economy. It's going to come at the expense of our standard of living. It's going to come at the expense of a lot of things, but it's going to have to happen. And that's one thing I will say, because that's where I do think the Green New Deal, that thing that we're hearing about how they're going to fight these climate problems, that's where I think that they have it wrong. Because what we're hearing about the Green New Deal is they're not only going to fight and solve this climate problem, they're also going to make the economy like a lot better. They're going to make the economy incredible. People are going to be able to work less. People are going to get all these things. And I just think it's one or the other. Either you're going to have the New Deal, or we're going to fight this war against the environment. If you're like, when they say the Green New Deal, they're referencing the New Deal after the Great Depression. But remember, the New Deal was just focused completely on saving the economy. It had no focus on trying to save the economy and save the entire planet from human extinction. Well, save humans from being extinct. It was specifically focused on saving the economy. You can't have both, though. And I think that's where the Green New Deal, they're proposing something that I think is misleading, because the reality of our situation, and I think they're doing this because as a politician, it's not good. It's not good just to come out and say, all right, guys, everyone's going to have to get to work. We have to start doing all these things to save the entire world. And you may have to take some cuts in certain areas of your life. It may have to get a lot worse, but it's going to have to be necessary. That's what happens during a war. But people would be less likely to want to support something like that. So they throw in all these other things to try to tell you that not only are we going to save the world, we're going to make your life much better. But that's unrealistic. The truth is, we're going to have to fight this battle, and it's going to come at the expense of the economy. And I think that's another thing that people are overlooking when it comes to the economy, is the fact that, and here's the thing, not only are we fighting environmental wars, we're going to be fighting real wars. I think that's very possible. So all of these wars are going to prevent our economy from operating at a normal level. It's going to prevent our economy from producing things that people actually want, or need. Because, in a war, yeah, the economy may be producing a lot of things, but they're producing tanks. How are those tanks making anyone's lives better? They're not. They're used to destroy things, but it's necessary. It's needed. But if there wasn't a war, we wouldn't be producing as many tanks. We will probably be producing more like smartphones or something like that. Things that people actually want. But all of that's gonna have to be sacrificed in order to save the environment. and it's necessary. It's another example of a buildup of imbalances that has to be corrected. There's imbalances in the economy that have to be corrected. Then you correct that with a crisis. There's imbalances in our environment because we abuse certain things, and that's going to have to be corrected. And you can't correct imbalances and at the same time not have a dramatic change in the standard of living. Anytime you have a big shift or a big rebalancing of the globe, it's going to come with a lot of problems, suffering. These corrections in the long term, they're good. In the long term, we will have a more sustainable environment. Hopefully we would have a lot less environmental problems. But in the short run, within like the next 10 years, it's not going to be good at all. So anyway, that's what I want to talk about. You know, there's of course other things going on. You have stuff going on with Brexit. Hong Kong is getting worse, but we'll just have to see what happens and what develops right there. With Hong Kong, I think that the military will have to get involved. With Brexit, I'm honestly not sure what's going to happen with Brexit, but all of this is really uncertainty because no one really knows, and uncertainty weighs on the economy, and that's the most important thing to know because that's what is certain. What is certain about all of this is that it's going to be weighing on the economy because people don't know what's going to happen. So anyway, hopefully y'all figure something out. Maybe, yeah. I'll see y'all in a week. Have a great day.